Now, we are talking about conversations. So that means we want to make sure you're talking and they're listening, and they're talking and you're listening. It's not about us just as parents downloading information to our kids and telling them what to do, but it's about having a back and forth conversation. One thing we needed to make sure to do when we were parents, we need to listen. Because in our parent role, we talk to our kids a lot. We tell them where to go, we run their schedule, we help them get things done they need to get done. We're barking out orders and get your chores done. We're going to grandma's house this weekend. It's time for dinner. We're doing a lot of the talking. We need to sit down and do some of the listening as well. And you need to make sure that when your kids are starting to talk, and I know a lot of you might be in the situation where you're like, I want my kid to talk, but they just won't. Well, keep in mind, at some point, they probably will. And likely, I have found that sometimes it happens when we're not ready to listen because we're busy or it's bedtime. That's a good one. If your kids, we talked to a parent one time and they said, man, my kid, she's 16 and the only time she'll talk is when it's bedtime. It's like 10 o'clock at night and that's when she wants to talk. What am I supposed to do? And me and my wife told her, well, that's when you listen. When your kids are talking, man, you got to take advantage of that listening time. Now, I understand maybe you have an 8-year-old kid and they're talking at bedtime and it gets to be midnight, or I don't know if it ever could get that late. But yes, at some point in time, you would need to curb a conversation and end it and try and continue it later. And you might say, hey, buddy, it's time for bed. But it's just this idea that our kids might decide to talk to us when it's an unplanned time and it's maybe not the most convenient for us. One of the things to do at that time as well is if your kids catch you and they happen to want to talk and you're in the middle of a project or a chore, unless that project or chore is uber important, I really recommend setting that aside and then giving your kids time and listening to what they have to say. Or maybe you could try this. You're working on a project and maybe it is time sensitive. It is something for work that needs to get out in the next 15 minutes or something. But you would say to your kid, hey buddy, man, I want to listen to that. I want to be able to give you my full attention. And right now I've got to get this other thing done real quick. But as soon as I'm done, I'm going to be done in 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, I'm going to come find you, you come find me, and then I'm all yours, 100%. And then we can give our kids that full listening time. So take advantage of when they want to talk. Take advantage of the time that they start to talk. Even if what they're saying is coming from left field. And this is probably more for parents of older kids. And they're saying things that you maybe don't agree with. If you were to jump in and just say, well, I think that's wrong. I don't know where you're coming up with that. That's not what I think. Likely what you might be doing is telling them, you're wrong. I don't really want to listen to what you have to say. And if you're trying to open up communication and conversation with your kids, what are you saying when you do that? You're absolutely closing down conversation. If your kid doesn't feel comfortable coming to you, talking about things that are different than what you think or believe, I think you're closing down one of those on-ramps to conversation. So even though it might be hard, listen to what they're saying, don't butt in, ask questions, ask them where they're getting their information, who they're learning from, where they've seen it, who they've heard it from. And if you have developed this ongoing conversation rhythm in your family, you will have time to jump into the conversation, whether it's in that moment or it's later, or maybe you come back to your kid at another time and say, hey, the other day when you pulled me aside and you were talking to me about that thing and you shared with me that you saw it and it kind of made you think, and now you're thinking you want to do this. I've been thinking about it too. Could I just share some of my thoughts with you and then see what you think? And again, inviting that listening and talking, that back and forth with them. So again, just because your kids are saying something that you don't agree with, I would say that would be a bad move to shut them down at that time. I would really encourage you to listen and then to keep that conversation going at a later time. And you'll eventually get a chance to share what you think. And you know what, if we're talking about our older kids, they probably have a strong idea on what we think anyway. So it might not be as important as you think it is to be able to share your side or your opinion.